Good evening. Happy Monday to you and everybody who's listening on radio. That's Family Radio, watching on Family TV. Asanteni sana. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. My name is Medrin Yambura. Welcome to the show. This is the day. So the reason why I'm excited is because today we continue the conversation we started about 2 weeks ago. We promised the second part. It's here. We are talking about effective communication skills. And yes, due to public demand, he's back. Sakwa M. James, a communication consultant. Karibu sana, my brother.
Asante, Medrin.
Let me tell you, see, people have questions. Are you ready is the question. So I'm so glad you're here.
Yes.
The last time we talked about communication at work, and turns out an hour was not enough to cover everything.
Clearly.
So hopefully we do that today.
Yes.
So the last time you told us that communication differs from one person to the other, from upbringing and all that. But one thing I meant to ask was gender. Is there a gender that communicates better than the other? Feel free to talk about ladies. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Well, I do not think that there's a gender that communicates better than the other. I think that the different gender communicate differently.
Okay.
Now, why would I say so? Because the same way men communicate, that someone else or maybe some ladies would think it's not better communication. When the men are communicating amongst themselves, they're just fine. The communication from the ladies that men do not think is conclusive. When the ladies are catching up amongst themselves, they're just fine. So men are not, in my view, better communicators than the ladies. Neither are the ladies better communicators than the men.
Okay.
These two people communicate differently and for various reasons. If you look at professional parameters that one would use to determine a better communicator professionally, then you would find that there are ladies who are better communicators professionally, and there are also men who are better communicators professionally. But when we're looking at all of them on a level, both of them on a level ground, no gender is better than the other.
Okay.
Yes.
You've heard of the rule that we have more words than you do.
Yes.
Clearly,
Yes.
because we use more words than you do.
Yes.
And often people think that makes women a bit more expressive than men, and that's making them maybe better, quote unquote, because you said none is better.
Yes.
So is that the case?
That has been around, and I have heard it for years, of how many thousands of words women have in a span of 24 hours as compared to what the men do have. I think that alone should not make the ladies to be considered as better communicators. They can only be considered as frequent communicators.
Okay. Sawa.
Yes.
I hear you. Let's look at the people who also use big words to communicate.
Yes.
Case in point, a man I really respect, PLO Lumumba, who sometimes, and I feel like most of our leaders, they don't get it. They use such big words and no one gets what they're saying. So maybe just talk about that. Does it matter the quality of words you use when you're trying to communicate something?
I think big words have their place, and their place is not commonplace. Again, you have to look at whom are you addressing, and then we decide, what am I going to use? Now, if one would use, if a technical person would use big words, they would be forgiven, because that's all the language they know, the technical jargon within their industry or profession. But if I am not, and everyone really is a technical expert within their own field, but only if we are addressing matters that touch on my field. We communicators have our own jargon. When you come to print media, there's jargon for print, for broadcast. When we come to social media, there's jargon for social media. But when I am addressing one who's not in my space, it is important that I meet people where they are.
Okay.
It is important that I make an assumption that they have the very basic knowledge of words. Now, let's look at using big words. We would say that you're being pompous or something. Like I say, it has its own place. If one is a doctor and you're addressing doctors, there's absolutely no problem using those big words. But the question is, whatever you're saying to the doctors, is it likely to make it to the press? Do the journalists understand it? Would they miss an important point because I used a very technical phrase, then I am not communicating, I am losing the audience.
Okay.
But many times, and I am guilty as charged,
Yes.
many times when you do not want many questions, you do not want people to be on your case and asking questions and probing you on this and the other, people would be happy to use big words so that if anything you've not understood, you have no question, a pushing question from it.
Okay.
But generally, it's not, it doesn't have commonplace.
Okay, that's your PR side talking. Use the big words to avoid the questions. Allow me to go back a bit and talk about personalities. There are people who, for example, are phlegmatic, who's a bit laid back, and may not say as much. They might communicate better with non-verbals. Then you have a sanguine, who you'd say is a frequent speaker, who's just speaking constantly. So how do you make sure that your personality does not interfere with you communicating effectively, even at the work setting, because you're totally different? How do you make sure it doesn't work against you?
Everyone, even those who do not know, everyone has a brand. The person that you are is a brand. And so whether you are a sanguine or a choleric or a phleg as it were, and then you are not out there, you do not speak often, and you don't speak, and even when you're speaking, you're not going fast, you're not going loud, you're kind of composed in that way. In my view, I think that they also have their place. And what is their place? Their place would be the quality of what they are saying.
Okay.
I have heard someone say before that even if you're quiet throughout the conversation, depending on what you say, we will never want to finish a conversation without hearing from you, because we know what you're going to put in. So they should not be afraid, and that's one thing that I have seen with a few of them. They should not be afraid to say what they have to say.
Okay.
And most of the time, by God's grace, whatever they have to say is usually very sound. And that means if the rest of us can blabber for the whole 1.5 hours, in the last 20 minutes of the discussion, they're given just 2 minutes to say something, and the rest of us seem like we shouldn't have spoken at all.
Yes.
So they have that advantage.
Okay.
And as such, they should not feel like they have been left out. Just make a point to say something, because whatever they are saying is usually very outstanding.
Because I'm thinking of the brainstorms, and usually the sanguines have, they have so many ideas, and maybe the boss is a choleric who'll give the final word. Then there's somebody at the corner who's not saying anything. So it's okay to wait, listen, then give your point at the end.
It is okay. And the sanguines are playing a very important role at that point. Because in all these things that they are saying, in the conversations that the counters and the counters that they're having between each other, if there's a wise flag in the room, then they are using this back and forth to compose something that will silence everyone else.
Okay.
But the disclaimer is this: they can end up walking out of a meeting or conversation without having said something, depending, one, on who is moderating the conversation. If your boss knows that I have this kind of people and I have this kind of people, then he needs to be careful to allow everyone to say something. At least once or twice, everyone needs to be allowed to say something. That's when those who are quiet, because sometimes they're intimidated. Even when they have the right thing, they want to speak. I am in a certain group where we sit frequently, maybe weekly, and the way we answer questions, there is no raising of your hand or saying, I am ready. No. If you are answering the question, when we just monitor and we are listening, but then we will be able to tell when you have finished. And you'll hear someone spring up with something else on the other corner, another corner. So there's a gentleman who joined us and is we can say he's a flag. So him, the first few sittings, he was quiet through and through. And he knew we will have an opportunity, we'll give him an opportunity to speak. Sadly, that did not happen. Because here, people do, you just say, in fact, you book your space. How you book your space, you just start by, and then people know there's someone speaking.
Okay.
But it really depends on who is moderating. They just need to be considerate of everyone in the room.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's for team leaders. Make sure you,
Yes, that's
you
for team
cover
leaders.
everybody.
Yes,
okay.
that's for team leaders.
There's an interesting episode that I watched, and he's a popular TV personality, Steve Harvey.
Yes.
And he talked about having grown up with a stutter. He couldn't even finish a sentence. I think his life today is a testament that you can
Yes.
host a million shows. So there's somebody who watched the first show, and they mentioned that they had a stutter, and they're worried that they can't communicate because of the stutter. First, there's a confidence issue, and also mockery from people. So if they do have that problem, how do you move forward? Because you still need to communicate to people in this world.
Okay. Depending on, one, how old they are, where they are in life, and secondly, what do they want to become in life?
Okay.
So having considered both possibilities, I would say they need to allow themselves, they should not beat themselves because they stutter. They need to allow themselves to grow and to start from somewhere. And gradually they'll get to where they want to be.
Okay.
But there are two things that I think they would want to consider. One is build some comfort within your closest people, the people you are most comfortable with. If you're in a class, if you're at work, or if you're at home, there's at least one or two people who know where you are. Then you can start opening up with this one person.
Okay.
When you get it right, when you get it wrong, these are the people who will not mind. These are the people who will not judge you. These are the people who will encourage you. And it will even be better if these are the people who, in the background, will pray for you.
Okay.
So start from where you are. Find people that you're comfortable with. Secondly, they should not be afraid. They will stutter today and stutter tomorrow, and even those people they are not used to, start getting used to them. And we start knowing that this person is not a fast communicator, is not a quick communicator, is not, they don't put their words together with as much speed as the rest of us. And so when you start to speak, after you've done this many times and they have gotten you wrong many times, and I had such a friend at some point, we were in the same discussion group, and people would raise their points, and he is quiet. But he would still find a place to make his point. And he would make, because one, he was very soft-spoken, and secondly, he would speak very slowly.
Okay.
Now, if you put these two things together, and you're in a circle of 20 people, it can be a challenge. So in the first few weeks, we kind of got lost. Many people would interrupt him. You would think he's done.
Oh, no. Yes.
Yet he's still putting his thoughts together.
Okay.
So the first few weeks we would interrupt. Many of us, including myself, would interrupt him. Until now, we got to learn how he communicates. So the weeks that followed, people understood. When he starts speaking, you have to pay the most attention you can, because he's very soft-spoken.
Okay.
And then you have to be very patient and just let him go with his train of thought and go with it until he is done. And that kind of built some discipline even within the group. So there was no jumping on each other again and again.
Yeah.
So the person who asked that question, they need to love themselves from where they are.
Okay.
And allow themselves to grow slowly by slowly and gradually, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Today we do not know you, but as we engage with you once and twice, we get to learn your pattern. So before you know it, you'll have your space in every forum.
Okay. And I think also we thank science because that can be corrected.
It can.
Yeah. So there's hope.
It can.
Okay. Talking about effective communication skills, please pick a few tips here and there, and then you'll see the difference at work. Now, Sakwa,
Yes.
there are two types of departments. There's the creative department. It varies. The people who, whether it's an agency or a media house or any department that you're in. And then you have the technical. So the people who work with their hands and minds in quiet, and then the other people who need to engage.
Yes.
Communication huwa inaenda mrama. Case in point, if you have an ad agency and you have a brief from a client who wants a campaign, Unless you go to the graphics designer and explain exactly what you want, they will not get it, or they won't even go through the brief. So whichever situation you're in, how do you make sure that the different departments at work communicate effectively, especially what are technical? I still love you technical people, but it's a challenge. How do you make sure you communicate to them?
It is definitely a challenge. The burden lies with the team leader. And I'll come to that, but I'll give you an example or two examples before I come to the why the burden lies with the team leader. A friend of mine, and my friends who are watching would know who this is. He is extremely skilled on all technical matters.
Okay.
Anything, from hardware to software. And so he builds stuff and repairs stuff in great ways. But there's one challenge. He cannot tell you what he did. If you ask him, what did you do? He can't well, he will explain. Not that he'll keep quiet. He'll explain, but he will struggle through the explanation and you will get zero.
Okay.
So the best way for him to tell you what he just did, he will just dismantle and do everything he has done. And then now you watch as he takes it again.
Okay.
Tells you, now I just took this and did this and did this, pressed here, did that. That is it. Then there's another friend we work with on many projects that we get for communication, and they have a lot to do with graphic design. And we don't have an in-house graphic designer. We outsource. So you do a script and send to the graphic designer and tell them, so this is what we need. And we need 3 posters and this many flyers and etc. And then he says, imeelewa. And you're convinced this guy has gotten it.
Yes.
Until he sends you what he has done. You're like, exact opposite of what we asked you to do.
Yes.
So initially we had many of those back and forth until we realized this thing isn't working. Today when we're working with a technical person, in whatever task that they are doing, we send the script and ask them to look through it and confirm that they have understood. But when they send us their first drafts, if there are any corrections, we don't do it on email or on phone. Now we sit down and look at it clearly, one by one. And you'll realize, not like they do not know what they were supposed to do, but there was a complete breakdown of communication between what we were saying and what they were understanding.
Okay.
So you just need to tell them, I need this white here, this shade reduced a bit, then you increase blue here, which you can't do on phone, you can't do on email. Now let's come back to the burden on bridging this gap lies with the team leader. And the team leader has 2 things to do, or 3. One, the team leader has primary responsibility of understanding both teams.
Okay. So as the team leader, that's your job?
Yes.
Okay.
Understand the technical team and understand the front-end team and understand how each of them operates. Secondly, the team leader has to understand the task at hand and what needs to be delivered. And thirdly, the team leader has to be able to decode and encode.
Okay.
The comms that is coming from the front end, the team leader needs to act like the channel. So it's passing through you as the team leader, then it's you, because you see the front end guys,
yes,
like we who speak to the public, we may not have the best illustrations and language to break it down to the technical guys.
That's true.
The technical guys only know the technical way of communication, whether they are using jargon or not. They only know the technical way of communication. So their communication also has to come through the team leader. The team leader decodes this and relays to those of us at the front.
The other team. Okay,
yes.
I hear you.
And the team leader finally has a responsibility of mediating any miscommunication. If this guy said this and this got this and this is the feedback we got and these guys were not happy, it settles here at the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking graphics designers are very happy because you've explained the situation. It's so tricky when you're trying to explain it.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the mother of them all, listening. Aki huwa hatusikizi. Let me tell you, I'm also a culprit. Even when I'm seated here and I'm speaking to a guest, because of what is going on through here, one ear needs to listen to you, but the other part of the brain needs to connect the dots, then the other one needs to listen to producer. So it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But even in the day-to-day, people don't listen, do they?
People listen, but the challenge is not the listening or lack thereof. The challenge is there are two challenges that we encounter out there. Number one challenge is, why are they listening? Number two challenge is, what do they do with what they have heard from the process of listening? So I could be listening,
Yes.
but I'm only listening just so we get this done with. I'm not in any way interested in what you're saying. Or I already have a prejudice, I already have a formed perception on this subject.
Okay.
So what you're saying really doesn't make a difference because I have a formed perception. Now that is the motive. But there's also, when you're listening, what do you do with what you have heard? Communication has an objective. The reason we communicate is, one, so we get common ground and be able to move forward. So if we are communicating and you're not, you look like you're listening, but you're not listening, we will not find common ground.
That's true.
Which means whatever we'll have said here will end up to be just that. So why don't people listen? They have the wrong motive, they have prejudices and preformed perceptions, and they are, sometimes it's also about the messenger.
Yes.
We look at the messenger in a different way. And sometimes it is not me listening who has looked at the messenger in a different way. It is the messenger who has created a barrier per se. For example, if there is you talking to me and you talking at me.
A lot of times do the art.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you're talking to me, it's easier for me to listen to you. But if I just realize that you are now beginning to talk at me, the most natural thing to do is to switch off. So I'll sit here, stare at you, and I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm not listening to you.
Okay.
So we have to solve the listening problem by first setting depending on what the setting is and what we are talking about. But because we are looking at largely the workplace, we'll assume that this is a meeting of a few people, or I am sitting somewhere with my boss, or someone is doing a presentation. Then we have to start by agreeing on what the objective of this communication is. And then the person who's speaking, assume that your audience has cleared out any barrier. So the only barrier that can be there is you, the speaker. Now ask yourself, how can I be the barrier? I can be the barrier by using very big words. I can be the barrier by coming late. I can be the barrier by coming in, dressed and groomed up in a way that the focus is on me and not on my message.
Yes.
I can be the barrier by way of the examples that I'm using and the jokes that I am giving.
Okay.
I can be the barrier by making communication that clearly tells, I do not know my audience. So when you're preparing to speak to people, even if there are people you interact with every day, it's important to have time to do some audience analysis.
Okay. Even if it's a simple meeting at the office.
Even if it's a simple meeting.
Okay.
The audience analysis is not a complex process. You just have to ask yourself 3 or 4 questions. Who am I going to speak to? I'm going to speak to people from this department, this department, this department. Who is likely to come from this department? So and so, so and so. What would so and so like to know about this subject? We are running this project. What would Medrin like to know? What is the interest of this department in this subject? Now, what can I say and what shouldn't I say at all? So a simple audience analysis, so that I'm not coming here and using and poking my fingers at projects that we did previously and so on and so. If I'm going to refer to previous projects, then I have to have the data.
Okay.
So I'm not referring to previous projects with false information. Then that creates a barrier and nobody will listen to you. If I came late and I'm setting up a projector and my flip chart when everybody else is there is when I'm struggling to power up my laptop, and then I do not know where the slides are, and then when I start doing it, I put up the wrong slide. I have lost the audience already.
Okay.
And it's worse if I only have 1 hour. Because it will take more than an hour to get them
recover.
back.
Okay, yeah. I hear you. And can you imagine in that situation, even maybe your dressing is off, then it's completely off the rails.
Totally.
So listening is work.
Listening
it's
is
intentional work.
Now, the listening has two. There is active listening and there's passive listening. Passive listening is I'm seated here and you're talking. Truth is, I can hear what you're saying. Truth is, there's a possibility if I am asked tomorrow what you said, I can point out a few things. But if I cannot have corresponding action to it, I will not have questions to ask you, I will not have clarifications to seek, and I will not have additions to make to what you have said.
Yes.
That is how you know whether someone was actively or passively listening to you. When we were in school, when the teacher would finish and they ask anyone who has a question, they would be very offended if there is no one who has a question. Someone just have a question, even just a clarification, even if you just want to ask whether this was number 1 or number 2, the teacher feels they have communicated.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's an imagination that you guys were passively listening to them. Now, active listening gives an avenue for 2 or 3 things to happen. Active listening allows you as the audience to get to understand, to get some questions from what is being said.
Okay.
In that when I finish, you can be able to ask 1 or 2 questions. If you don't have a question, you can find a point of clarification that you have. If that is not the case, then you can have an addition to make. That addition could be by way of complimenting this person. That addition can be a way of giving your own experience. That addition can be a way, by way of you giving an example of what this person just spoke about. Now, people who do not listen actively will still end up complimenting you because they have to. It's part of the process. But what will they say? They will compliment you and they will not at all refer to any specific thing that you said, any specific example, any specific joke that you made. And that person was listening to you passively.
Okay.
So they are giving a vote of thanks, like anybody would just walk into this room and they are told you have finished, you've been talking about something, and they ask to thank you. Anyone can do that. But if I was actively listening, it's important that I make direct reference to 1 or 2 or 3 things that you said.
Sakwa, what does it mean for the person who's speaking or communicating when they know that you're listening to them?
You see, the person who's communicating, the person who's speaking, they find a lot of confidence and satisfaction when they know that they have an audience. Not just a group of people seated in a room. They have an audience. An audience has a few features to it. That they have maintained eye contact, they are maybe taking notes, they are giving you some nonverbal cues. If you're making relevant jokes, they can laugh at them.
Okay.
You can see them nod or do something nonverbal. That is what tells you that you have an audience and not just a group of people in a room.
Okay.
So when the person speaking realizes that the audience is listening to them, it validates what they are saying. They know that, 1, I am either saying the right thing, or even if I'm saying the wrong thing, I'm saying it the right way. So it gives them confidence as well.
Yes.
They keep going, and it encourages them. And it creates a connection between the speaker and the audience. That's why after the session is done, one would be seen with interacting with a few members of the audience here and there, because they sensed the connection when they were delivering whatever they had.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I needed you to clarify that is I read somewhere that people just need to be seen, to feel seen rather. That when you stand there, when you come for the show, you just need to understand that you are seen, and that makes all the difference. Now, I'll be giving you a tough question because I know you can handle it. And I'm telling Sakwa, I'm going to make sure he comes back again and again till you and I become the best communicators we can be. So a bit of feedback. Padly, hi. That's awesome, Bwana Sakwa. I'd like to hear about active communication. It's very true. Pastor Wadi. And you're saying, in a question, how can one improve his audience's listening from passive to active? Say something on how to improve your audience listening mode from passive. Oh, I think that's what you meant, because it's stressful and straining talking to a passive audience. Let me give you another question in that line. Okay. Lawrence. Hi, Lawrence. Santi Sana, you're saying you're loving the show, and then you're saying this is your challenge. I'm quite good at networking, and that eventually leads to exchange of contacts. So they switch numbers or they follow each other on social media.
Yes, yes.
But my problem lies in following up in terms of relevant topics to talk about. Ooh, brother, I feel you. Consistency levels, and many of my contacts do not yield the results I usually expect, even though they have the potential to, and conversations are often short term. Any tips on how to improve? Lawrence, nakufil mambo ya blue ticks. I hear you. Sako, please help us.
Let's start with Pastor Wali.
Yes.
How to improve the listening levels of his audience from passive to active listening. It depends with where you are. It depends with, let me look at it in two ways. One, I have not arrived, I've not started talking, but I know the people I'm going to talk to.
Okay.
So I know the last time I was with them, they were passive listeners. So what do I do differently? What do I do differently has to start with me, and then the message, and then the way I'm bringing the message. I have to try and bring it out differently.
Okay.
I have to look different. I have to run an audience analysis. If I'm going to speak to the 70-year-olds, and I cannot present myself the same way I would present myself if I'm going to speak to my Sunday school children.
Okay.
If I'm going to present myself to the teenagers or young adults. So I have to ask myself, how differently do I want to present myself? Now, one, I'm not boring, and two, I'm not destructive. Secondly, Pastor Wali could also consider how the message is coming to them.
To the person listening.
Yes, how you're bringing your message to them. So let's now come, second scenario. I am already here, I have started presenting, and I realize these guys are not listening actively. They are passively here. They're either on their phones or something. What do I do? There are nonverbal cues that you want to use to keep people actively listening to you. Let's look at your voice first of all. And voice has two things to it. There's the pitch and there's the volume. And then there is the pause. So those three things are important.
Okay. Pitch, volume, and pause.
Pitch, volume, and the pause. When you listen to some people talking, they would talk, and then all of a sudden, the volume either goes up or down. There are times they would take a long pause. There are times they would put their words together back to back, like a whole paragraph without rest. You don't notice where the full stop is. Those are and you need to do this. They need to be varied. So there's where the voice goes up, the pitch and the voice are different things.
Okay.
So you need to vary your voice presentation. And like we've said, that varying the voice presentation is the voice, the volume, the pitch, and the pause. So there's where you want to pause. If I was talking here, just as I am doing now, and then I pause for a little more than 15 seconds, everyone who's watching out there would even if those who are listening or watching while doing other things, if I pause for a little more than 15 seconds, they will turn and look at their screens.
Okay.
Either things that are running in your head, has power gone off? Has something happened in the studio? Has Sakwa lost his point? I haven't. I'm just looking for you. So Pastor Wali, try exercising pause, pitch, and volume. Now, the other thing is the examples you give.
Yes.
You need audience analysis. That's why, again, it's very important. So if you know your audience, now you know the examples you're going to use. Use questions. Ask them questions and have them answer them randomly, or answer them tell each other their answers. And the other thing you could also do is you could have a question, and then you ask three people to try and answer it together. Then once they have finished answering in 2 minutes, you sample them randomly and say, now let's hear what you guys had to say. From that corner, what did you guys find out? What did you guys say here? Of course, everybody is ready. They don't know whether it's their group that will be asked to, but you're just taking 3 or 4.
Okay.
Then now these people, they are with you. That's what I would say for now in that short way.
Okay.
And I hope Pastor Wali is helped with that.
He's a good listener. I know he's listening.
Let's come to Lawrence. Lawrence says
yes,
he networks a lot and is good at networking, and that's a real good thing, Lawrence. So you need to keep at it. But he has 3 challenges. One, the topics to keep engaged with the person people he meets at the networking places. The other thing is the consistency, And consistency here has two things to it. And then there's the results of the networking. He doesn't see his networking yielding results.
Okay.
Let's start here. If I went, Family Media has a breakfast and you've invited all your partners, and so you invite Sakwa because Sakwa has been here once or twice, and I am meeting people that I have never met before or others I have met. We have to start from, what is the networking event? Is it a social event? Is it a corporate event?
Okay.
Either way, when I am going for this event, I have to start preparing for it earlier. And I'm asking myself, what is this event? Who is likely to be at this event? What lasting mark do I want to leave with anyone I will meet at this event?
We never think about that.
If I am a business person, or you are employed, but your job entails that you meet people and bring many of them on board as clients, then you have to say, if I'm a business person, for example, where we work, we do projects and do events and also do consulting. Then I ask myself, this is Family Media's breakfast. Which of these three product lines do I want to present here?
Okay.
So I come knowing what I'm coming to sell. And how you decide that could be two ways. You could decide depending on what is not doing well in your business that you want to promote more. Then you say, today I am going to front the conferencing product.
Okay.
Or you also look at the audience after imagining who is likely to be here, and you say, what would these people be looking for? And then I say, maybe they want someone to help them with their project. And I say, so today I am going to front the project side of my business.
Okay.
Now, how do I need to present myself? All that. Do I have my cards ready? If I don't have cards, do I have a notebook? Even if I have my cards, where am I pulling them from? Tradition and cultures are very important to understand when you're going to network.
Okay.
Where you're pulling your business cards from and where you're keeping that other person's card is very important. If you gave me their cultures and other people who are cultured in such a way that if they gave you their business card and you pull your wallet from your back pocket and insert it there, you are done.
Because they're thinking that's where I am on your list.
Like you and them, you're done, kabsa.
Okay.
So, best practice, pull your business cards and store your business cards anywhere from the front side of you. It could be your pocket on your shirt, your chest pocket, could be your jacket here or your jacket here.
For the ladies, can you get it from
For the
your
ladies,
purse?
yes, you can put it in your purse. And I've seen these days you have phone covers that are really cool.
Those ones are nice.
Yes, you insert them there.
Yes.
And that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
So you pull yours from there and you insert the ones you've been given there.
Okay.
That is number one. So that this person, it's an impression you're creating. You've given this person a perception of you. The other thing, when you give me your business card, what do I do with it? At this point, I'll just keep it in my pocket and go home. But Lawrence, when you're done with the networking event, don't just pick these business cards and add them to the other stack of cards that you have. Before you add them there, take a pen or a pencil, flip the business card to the other side. Write the date and where you met this person and what this person could benefit from you or what you could benefit from them before you store that card aside.
That makes a lot of sense.
All right? So that's the second thing to do on networking. Topics. He said about topic. How does he get a topic, interesting topic to discuss with these people? And we're assuming now that is a topic at this very event I just met you today. One, you can start by complimenting them. Complimenting them goes easily, any day. All right? I could just say, Medrin, I love your top today.
Oh, asante Sakwa.
It's like, oh,
God
thank
bless
you.
God bless you.
And I'm like, you must be really, a well put together person. Not many people would take white tops with this sun because of sweating. That is a conversation starter.
Okay.
So, complimenting this person is one. Two, find an interesting thing about the event and talk about it. And when you're talking about it, you don't want to be the one doing the talking. Get this rule before we move further. If we are networking, consider you're talking 10% of the time, allow them to talk 90% of the time. So how do you ensure you're talking just 10% of the time? Questions.
Ask the questions.
Then allow them to go. Then seek clarification on their questions. So compliment them. pick something about the event and talk about it. When you're done with that, look at the current affairs. Because if I've given you my business card, you know my field. So you need to also be very fast in analyzing this business card. If I've given you my card, you look at it and imagine what I do. Just this business card could be a conversation starter. If it does not tell a lot, you say, so what do you guys do? They tell you what they do. You ask more questions, and you give them examples and on and on and on. And then if you run out of ideas at that point, come to current affairs. Today, the most trending current affair in the country is what?
Hashtag New York.
KQ, all the way to New York, 15 hours.
Yeah.
So you start by that one. If you're talking to Sako, and you know Sako is a communications consultant, and you ask a simple question, for instance, KQ, today just landed at New York. This entire process, have you been following that thing, by the way? Then I tell you yes or no. If I have been following, you ask, from your field, how do you think, what would you say about how government has communicated about this whole process of direct flights to the US? If someone asks me that question now, I would tell them a lot of communication and publicity and razzmatazz has been done beyond the borders than locally.
Okay.
Locally, we are happy about it and everything because it's ours. We are those guys.
And you have no idea why.
We are just those guys. So pick a current affair and relate it to this person or where they are.
Okay.
And have them talk about it. Now, if you meet for a second time, how do you raise a topic? If you meet me today, go and look at my website if I gave you one. Go and look and see whether my business is online. Go and look if I, as Sakwa, I am on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, or so. Like, follow, and then you'll be seeing updates. If you see one of my clients, featured in the newspaper, the next time we meet, we bring that up. We're like, by the way, good stuff. I saw your client in Business Daily last Thursday.
Okay.
That's what they gives you topics to discuss.
So do your homework.
This person will start telling you how their client got to the business, to the Business Daily, and on and on. So do your homework. You have work. You have your bit to do. Why would you not get results from your networking? I have alluded to it. What you do with your business card. You don't sell everything to everyone.
Okay. Customize this conversation.
Yes.
Sako, imagine you're out of time and I still haven't asked you my tough question, which means you're coming again. In short, Lawrence, I hope you've gotten clarity. Please use that because I think the gift of already being able to network, that is really tough for people.
Yes.
Then the next step should be very easy for you. Pastor Wali, naona umeelewa, asante sana. To everybody who asked a question and I didn't get to it, imagine it's a 1 hour show. But I'm very, very happy you watched. Thank you to you, Sako, for coming through and thank you for watching. Have a good night.